names.
Man, I remember when you guys first came out, I was like, this is a totally new kind of sound. Like, you guys had a totally new kind of sound. I remember I found out about it, like, I wasn't even into weed back then. I was like, why is this weed symbol everywhere? What are these guys doing? These rappers with weed, what the hell's happening over there? But I remember listening, I'm like, you guys had a completely different kind of sound.
Yeah, the thing is that Muggs was from New York. He was from Flushing. So a lot of his influence was from New York. His favorite production was like the Bomb Squad, which were producing Public Enemy and all their shit. They had like some of the most complex production at the time with bridges and breaks and these crazy sounds and stuff like that. So, that's what Muggs got down with. Now, when he moved out here and we start hanging out, he's introducing us to New York music, hip hop music that we heard. We heard some of it via the radio on KDAY, an AM station that was playing a lot of hip hop in the mix, and some of it mixed with R&B and soul throughout the day. So this is where we got our first introduction to hip hop. But Muggs, being from New York, whenever he'd go back, he'd come back with new records and he'd introduce us to stuff like that. And so when it came time to working on an album, he had all that influence, and being from New York and absorbing all that culture, it sounded sort of like New York style production mixed with a little bit of LA influence, especially with what Sen and I were kicking in terms of vocals, because we were using a combination of LA and New York slang, merged as one. So that's why a lot of people were confused, like, where are these guys from? You ask people in New York, they thought we were from East New York, and they were from Cypress Hills, New York. And people that were from LA, they were like, well, wait a minute, they kind of sound West Coast-ish. I think they're from out here. But they didn't really know until we came out and said, yeah, we're from LA. Our boy's from New York, and we're sort of a bridge, between LA and New York with the sound. So, yeah, it was always a New York influenced sound because, that's where he was from. But I think that's what added to us being different, because most things that were coming out of Los Angeles in that time or Southern California sounded like gangster rap, sounded like a version of NWA or Compton's Most Wanted or something like that. And we wanted to be different. We didn't want to be in that lane. We felt that was their lane. We need to make our own. So we didn't want to sound like anything else that was in Cali. And we didn't get signed by a California label, like whether it was Sony or any of it. We got turned down here because we didn't sound like we were from California.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. And
how short-sighted people are.
And it turned out that like our well, we call him Uncle Joe the Butcher, who was based out of Philly. He had his label with Rough House with Chris Swartz. He had worked with Muggs on an album that when Muggs was in a group called 783. He knew Muggs' potential. He liked Muggs. He saw that, he was evolving as a producer. He heard about our thing, and he wanted to take a chance on us. Where we were getting turned down from every goddamn label in L.A.
Not funny.
They just didn't understand us. You guys are talking about weed? How does this make sense? What, you got any other songs? We're like, no, we're cool. And yeah,
I want to get high.
Yeah, we're sitting there.
High.
They're eating lunch, listening to a song about getting high. They're like, what the fuck is this? Or no, we didn't even have that song yet. We were talking about it was the Get High song on there was Light Another and something else, but Light Another was a main one. And we're talking about it. That's one of the demos that played, and that you could see the execs just scratching their head like, what do we do with this? Isn't
it funny that everybody wants everything to be cookie cutter?
Yeah.
Like the idea that rap didn't even exist a few decades prior, right? It wasn't even a common thing. And now all of a sudden it's huge, and they can't see that maybe there's another branch of this that could... it's funny that they wouldn't recognize how good it is. That's what's weird.
What it is they don't want to take a chance on trying to develop it, because if it fails, it's on their back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they want something that's easy, that this sounds like this. We can market it in this lane. This is already a successful template. Let's use this. Oh, they're not using that shit. We can't do nothing with it. So, like it's the development. And fortunately, when we got signed to Rough House Columbia, we had the power of Columbia backing us up because they sort of believed in what we were doing. Well, they not sort of believed, they believed in what we were doing and got behind it and allowed us to be as creative as we wanted to be and pushed us. And along with having Joe and Chris on our side, creatively like pushing our line and saying, hey, what these guys are doing great. We don't want to intervene and, change anything they're doing. Just let them fucking go. I mean, that was everything because, most of the time they want an easy layup. So if, let's just say, there's a group over here that's doing well. Hey, why don't we make a record like this over here?
Right.
It's like, well, why don't you go sign that shit over there? This is not who we are. So, they want you to make it easy, but realistically, it's nothing good is ever easy. You got to work toward it and develop it. And fortunately, we got on the team that believed in that. And man, it was the biggest fuck you to all those that turned us down and didn't get what we were doing.